What's up, guys? Welcome back to Ride the Bean. This is a little bit of a bonus episode, an extra episode, because I've been staying here at Jeremy's farm for a couple of days. And we've had some really interesting talks, and he's been showing me around the area here and everything. So this is basically a summary of some of the talks we've had. And last night he showed me around his farm and introduced me to his sheep. Which was really interesting. I learned a lot about sheep that I didn't know. So yeah, this is just a little bit of a summary of the past 2 days. So I hope you enjoy it.
You're a bit hard on sheep farmers sometimes because of the wolves.
Yeah, this is that's...
Okay, so yeah,
maybe you can shed some light on that and teach me something.
Wolves are important.
Yeah.
We don't want to wipe out the wolves. There's like, for the farmers, it's pest or cholera. You know, what's your choice? And I think it's a shame that in some instances you get extremists who swear by the gun and get rid of all the wolves. You know, they were exterminated once, we can do it again, and all this stuff. It's
Yeah, that's not a good thing. It's like both should be able to coexist.
Yep.
It's just about finding the right way to do it.
But you had the kind of the history in there. Part of this is farmers get bigger or get out, right?
Yeah.
More sheep, and so all the farmers, you have all those farmers on the Swedish border in the forest. Wolves are almost gone at that time. And so they expand and you say they've got all this what do you call it, utmark?
Wilderness.
Yeah, it's like this land that they can graze on, you know, and so you can have a much bigger herd, flock of sheep. So they invest. They build these big sheep sheds so they can keep them in the winter, and they've got this big loans and all this sort of thing. And then they said, oh, we have to bring the wolves back again. It's like, wait a minute, I've got like 10 million kroner in a loan, which the government has encouraged me to do. What's going to happen now?
Yeah.
So I think it's the political developments there have a lot to blame for what.
Of course. But what I just don't really understand is that every other country that I've ridden through, wherever you see sheep or goats, you see herders.
Yeah.
1 or 2 or 3, depending on the size of the flock.
Yeah.
They're always watching the animals 24/7. They walk around with guns and whatever, but there are predators there. There's wolves and there's bears. There's everything.
Yeah.
But they're watching the animals, and that's what there's no farmers in Norway who watch the animals 24/7.
I mean, it's not effective. What are you doing? It was like wandering around the forest. You should be cutting the grass in the summer. That's what you should be doing. Maintaining your tractors and all the buildings.
It is an economical question, I guess.
Yeah.
If you could afford to hire herders, you would.
Yeah.
But
it's. They used to do it before. They used to have shepherders for the flocks in Norway, and they also used to bring the sheep in at night, very often. Not always. And but it's kind of like I say, it's a very tricky question, but I think it's a lot to do with politicians who just haven't got a clue what they're making decisions about.
It's always the case. Like they sit in Oslo and just they've never been on a farm in their life and have no idea about.
Well, they might have been a farmer as well, but they might have been a corn farmer. It was like, I grow corn, I know I'm a farmer. Well, it's kind of a tricky situation, it really is. But I think it's the big problem is trying not to become an extremist and saying, I want to wipe out the wolves on sheep farmers who are all murderers. You know?
Yeah, no, the extremists is never good in any situation.
No.
There's always a middle ground somewhere that's sensible. But yeah, of course, I don't know the intricacies of sheep farming. It's just questions that I ask myself when I ride through countries and I see wherever I go, I see
Yeah.
people watching the flock, regardless of how big it is. I've seen
Yeah.
flocks with like several hundreds of animals, and then they just have more people watching it.
Yeah.
But of course, that costs money and it takes time, and it is a full-time thing. You need to watch them 24/7, and so the farmers often have several kids, so they can help
Yeah.
watch the animals,
Yeah.
and so it's a different culture. I know it's probably more difficult to do it the same way here because salaries are completely
Yeah.
different, and
In these countries, how would you say the general standard of living compares to?
yeah, of course, that is the difference. The standard of living is not comparable at all. It's completely different. So of course I understand that part of it, but
Yeah.
still, it's like
It's you can when you see that it's possible.
yeah, exactly. You see, it's possible. So of course, but you're right. It is a political thing. It needs to be handled by the politicians in the right way. But you need to have the right people to make the decisions and find the best compromises for it. One thing could be like government subsidies, so you could hire people to watch the sheep, for example. I don't know. But yeah, I know it's not easy, but it's still. Every time I see it, it just that question pops into my head.
You say you know it's not easy. It's interesting actually. You can put a spaceship on Mars, but you can't can like solve this question of the wolves and the sheep. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, it's priorities.
Yeah.
I'm listening to a book now, audiobook by Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Who?
Neil deGrasse Tyson,
Okay.
the astrophysicist. He's talking about looking at everything in life, from the smallest thing to wars, to all kinds of conflicts, to whatever it is. Look at it through the cosmic perspective.
Cool.
Because if you like, everyone is so focused on their little bubble, on their little issue, on their little war, on their little whatever.
Okay. So.
But if you zoom out and you look at it like from the perspective of an astronaut, seeing the whole world, like everything, all the people you know, everything you love, everything you hate, everything is in there, that little ball that you see in front of you. Listen to what the Apollo astronauts were saying from the moon.
Neil Armstrong, yeah.
Yeah. Like your perspective changes. You realize that like, all of these little squabbles and quarrels and whatever here on Earth, they're irrelevant. They don't matter when you zoom out. So whenever you have an issue, whenever you're frustrated about something or angry or whatever, zoom out and try to look at it from the cosmic perspective and see, and try to think, does it really matter? Is this sensible to spend this much energy on this? I really like that perspective.
That's like the DJI 2.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow. I can hear you a little bit better. I have 3 of those mics now. One came with this camera, and then I got like the.
You get 2 of. Right. Okay. Keeping track of all the technical details of this.
It's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
I used to be really like interested in tech.
Right.
But then I started working in the coffee industry, and I was just working 24/7 for like 6 years.
Okay.
I was sleeping. I was living at my coffee roastery.
Wow.
I spent maybe between 5 and 10 hours a week at home. The rest I was at work. And so.
Was it because you enjoyed it, or was it because you felt you had to?
In the beginning, it was because I enjoyed it, but then it was because I had to.
Yeah.
And it just I used up my body, and one day I just collapsed at the post office, and I was gone. I couldn't lift my arms. I was completely dead. I was working like between 12 and 20 hours a day.
Right.
And I just like slept on coffee bags on the floor of the roastery for years. and yeah, it takes a toll. Like I didn't really think about it at the time, but like now, in hindsight,
Right.
I see that how stupid it was.
Okay, you have an amazing drive.
I did, but that's also like what we talked about yesterday. Like after my accident, everything changed.
Right.
So I used to have a lot of anxiety, and I needed to do this. I felt so responsible. I had to do it,
Yeah.
and I was always like jittery, and I felt bad if I didn't complete things, and all of this.
Yeah.
But now, I just I can't. I don't care that much anymore.
Right.
And so it's not like nothing is that important.
Yeah.
Now, like a nice view is more important to me than anything else. And so this has kind of changed. You realize after something tragic like that happens that, well, life is short. You don't know what to do. So yeah, just enjoy the time
What's
you have
there.
there, whether it's one day or 50 years.
Yeah.
Just enjoy whatever time you have and have fun instead.
Yeah.
Like when if I ever get like 80, 70 and sit on the porch of my cabin, what do I want to reminisce on? That I was a good worker or all the experiences I had? It was like, yeah, I think experience is more fun to think back on.
Yeah.
This is like, I love Norway in so many ways.
Yeah.
There's so many good things about Norway, but this micromanagement of absolutely everything, it drives me nuts.
Micromanagement. Yeah.
It drives me crazy.
Yeah.
You feel like you're in a kindergarten. The government is going to control every fucking aspect of your life.
Right. And actually, you're pressing people to not respect the system and
Yeah.
just like break the laws, you know, just like or bend the laws.
Yeah, but it's in some cases the laws are reasonable and sensible.
Yeah.
But when you make up laws that are just completely arbitrary,
Right.
it's like, why? Why can't I drink beer on a Sunday? Like, what? It's like there's no reason. There's absolutely no reason for it. Like what?
And very often you drive up into the mountains and you get the views into the mountains, but you get a completely different view when you're driving in the other direction.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's like on my journeys as well in Europe. Is when you come to these places that have like incredible mountain views,
Yeah.
like Granada or in Spain, or like the Alps in
Right.
France and
They are big, aren't they?
in Italy. Yeah, that's the what's it called, the Dolomites
Right.
in Italy. It's just like stunning. It's dangerous to drive there because you take your eyes off the road and you just like, you're not watching where you're going because it's just
Yeah, I can imagine.
it's I don't know how many times I'm almost just driven off a cliff because I'm just like, oh wow. Certain things you just never get tired of.
Right.
Like there's like beauty changes. Like what humans consider beauty changes with like time and generations and everything.
Yeah.
But some things are just consistent. A sunset is always beautiful and it has always been beautiful.
Right.
And a mountain view will always be beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think there's no humans who don't think that.
There's a famous Viking saga, Njal saga. And one of the main protagonists there is Gunnar of Hlíðarendi. I don't know if you heard of this. And he was a really stout warrior, and he had a special weapon called an Ottgeir, which is like a cross between a sword and a spear. Anyway, he was really, really famous, nice, magnanimous? Yeah, kind guy, helped people, but he's also a fearsome warrior as well. He was really big and everything. But they had this kind of prophecy on him, or he went to a seer and he was in trouble with some other people and stuff. And they made a prophecy and they said, if you go abroad and win fame and fortune for yourself. You'll come back and you'll be a big hero later years. But you have to go get out of the place. If you stay here, you're going to die. And he said, oh, okay. So he was given a ship by his family or whatever, loaded up all his sheep and his family and everything, and they're going to go to Norway and go out trading and stuff. And as he's riding away from Hlíðarendi, which is where he lives, and it's like these green hills and crags and really beautiful place. So he rides away from it, says goodbye, rides away, and he falls off his horse. And it's kind of like, Vikings don't fall off their horses, you know. This is something that's really weird that happens. So the horse stumbles and he falls off it. He's like, this is meant to, oh goodness. And as he gets up, he's looking in back at Hlíðarendi and he sees how beautiful this is. And he said, I can't leave this. I have to stay here. He stays there. It's a tragic end. But it's because of that beauty in the landscape. Which is kind of cool because it shows also the Vikings appreciated that kind of stuff, you know.
Yeah, I often think about like what life was like back then here. When you ride through these places that you know, well, the Vikings lived here.
Yeah.
This is where they were from.
Yeah.
And they saw these mountains and these forests and everything.
Exactly that view.
Yeah, exactly the same.
Amazing.
It hasn't changed except for more farms and roads now.
Well, if you look up, you don't see those.
No.
You just see the mountains. And they were hunting and skiing and doing stuff then.
And you imagine like life here is not easy now, but back then, damn it.
I think, yeah, the hardest thing in any culture really is if you're poor. And I think the poverty today is more hidden. You don't see it so much.
Because, well, back in the day, no matter how poor you were, you always had your hands. You could always build things yourself.
Yeah.
But now you can't really do that. Nobody has the skills to do it. Nobody is...
You're not allowed to. It's the
Yeah,
laws.
you're not allowed to.
Yeah.
And so...
You have to earn money.
Yeah.
Otherwise, that's it. You know, it's like...
I'm kind of attracted to... I'm really fascinated by the people who just move off grid. They just go for a walk far into the mountains and they build their own huts. They build their own everything. And they just live there without anything.
Amazing.
But you're not really allowed to do that because the land is owned. You're not allowed to cut down the trees. You're not allowed to do this and that. Yeah. And it's just, of course, you get it because if everyone did that, there's no places left. But at the same time, it's kind of nature. We're the concept of land borders and countries it's a weird
so
thing.
Artificial.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally. It's like having the wolf zones in Norway and Sweden.
Yeah.
Right. And when they started, I remember 30 years ago, they were starting this. And the farmers in Hempstead, we don't really have a problem with wolves or bears or anything. But they were looking at the government, they're going to have wolf zones. He was like, you're going to tell the wolves this? This is your zone? You're going to stay in there? It's like, how naive can you be?
Yeah. It's fascinating how humans think of themselves as superior to the rest of nature. And we sort of decide who gets to live and die and live where and whatever. Why?
It is absurd.
It is.
Actually.
And that's like when you zoom out and look at it from the cosmic perspective again, like we talked about. It's just, when you live in your little zone and your little bubble, these things make sense. But when you zoom out, there's no borders looking from space. There's no territories or anything. It's just...
There's a poet, an American poet called Gary Snyder, who I have a lot of respect for. He trained in Japan in a Zen monastery for 10 years, actually. And then he came back and he kind of like came back to US and decided that all very well being in a monastery, but other people were making his food. He was kind of like living off other people, so he'd done the training, and he completed the training. So now is what do you say? And put my shoulder to the wheel, get back to my own place. So he built his own house in the Sierra Mountains, Sierra Nevada, in an ecological way, and he's lived there ever since. But he's a very famous poet. But he coined the term bioregionalism, which is like bio, getting to know what the nature is where you are. And it's something that's kind of an inspiration for Heimweg and what we're doing here. Is you look at the water courses. Where does the water come from? Up here, up in the mountain pass up here, you've got Eldrevatn, and the water runs out of it at both ends. It's kind of weird. So it goes down to Sogndal, but also comes down here as well. And you have this long valley. Hemsedal, I think, is from the river is Heimsila, which means the home river down here. So you get to know the river. What kind of like, how's the forest? It's more lush around the river and stuff like that. And you get up into the mountains, the geology of the mountains, what kind of rock you got there, what kind of plants grow on that kind of rock. And then you have the wildlife living off the plants and the predators living off the wildlife and stuff like that. And those are like the cycles. And then you begin to see the natural boundaries that you've got. Like this is a natural boundary here in the forest, and with the river as well, kind of demarcate. But all the sort of like where the water comes from, that's really that's giving life to the rest. You everything. If it's too dry, nothing grows. And that sort of stuff. And that's when you really start to get to know the area as living.
Native people are really, really good at that. They've been living with this
absolutely
for ages.
They have this kind of amazing in-depth knowledge about that kind of stuff.
It was many years ago now. I was staying with a tribe in the Amazon in Ecuador.
You were?
Yeah, for
really?
Like a week or so.
Okay.
And like one of the leaders of the tribe was like showing us around, taking us on like jungle walks and teaching us how to set traps and what kind of trees had like healing powers and like the in-depth knowledge they have of every single plant and an animal and everything is just incredible.
Yeah.
And it is like, for me, it was like a strange experience because I'm a very skeptical person.
I noticed.
But and so sort of they believe in all of these spirits and like all of these weird things. But it's like, if you look at it from a rational perspective, like you can just call it something else. They call it spirits, but like we know that it's not a spirit. It is something physical that actually happens in your brain when you're doing these rituals, when you're doing these things.
Nervous system,
yeah. There is something that actually is happening. It's not just imagination, but it's just we call it spirits, and that's mystical and that's weird. But if you could use scientific terms for it, it would make sense, because regardless of how skeptical you are, you feel certain things.
It has an effect.
Yeah. That was a very interesting realization. Like when you sit there and the shaman is blowing this smoke and like waving away evil spirits and blah blah blah. Of course, that has nothing to do with anything, but it calms you down and it sort of helps you focus your brain. It's like meditation in a way. And so, maybe like this and that doesn't do anything, but the actual act itself changes your nervous system in a way.
Changes your chemistry, biochemistry.
And so like when you mix the understanding, the modern scientific understanding of how things work with the old rituals and the shamanistic things, like then things suddenly make sense logically as well.
Right. Which the witches themselves represented what they didn't understand about nature. It was like there was no room for them in the religious idea.
Right.
So it's kind of like using religion to profile people. We are the guardians of the universe, if you like, or the stewards of nature and all this kind of stuff. and nature, you have to torture nature's secrets from her, and be mistrustful, and just generally that's really when they separated people and nature. They saw themselves completely different, and nature as being dangerous. You have to be afraid of nature. It's like, oh. And then I don't think we ever really got over that.
No, that's interesting. Yeah.
It's kind of...
That's kind of what religion does, though. It's a way to sort of control people, and also it's a way to explain things you don't understand. And so it's like it's like God is an ever receding pocket of scientific ignorance.
Say that again.
God is an ever receding pocket of scientific ignorance. Because whenever we didn't understand something, no, that's God. But then we figured that out. And well, now the next thing we don't understand is God. And then so on.
And it's all based on belief.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's kind of like, when I grew up a Christian, and after a while, one of the big questions was, what is actually belief? What is that? When you say you believe something, what does that mean, actually?
When I say I believe something, for me, it is I have sufficient evidence to think that this is the case. I have gathered sufficient evidence on this to believe that this is the case. That's like my version of belief.
Okay.
I don't believe anything that I don't have enough information on.
Right.
Then I just say I don't know. But if I've gathered sufficient evidence to sort of form an hypothesis, then I can say I believe it.
For me, it's if I say I believe something, it's a bit the same as saying, oh, well, I think so.
yeah, exactly. That's what it is. I think this is the case. I believe this is the case.
Yeah.
But
I think so with a lot of confidence.
yeah. But it means it means I don't know 100%. But it's like I know that evolution happened because there is overwhelming evidence for it. There is no other explanation. That is the case. So I know that is true. I don't believe evolution is true. But yeah, it's like when there is some evidence, but I don't know if there is sufficient enough evidence to form a scientific theory. When it's more of a strong hypothesis, then I can say I believe it.
Yeah. I think no. If I said I know something, I would say I know that I've got a cup of coffee here.
Yeah.
That I know that.
Yeah.
I don't need evidence. I don't need someone to prove that for me.
Yeah, exactly.
And belief is kind of like it's up in the head, really. It's like what I think, what I perceive.
Yeah, but it's based on the knowledge you've accumulated.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. The reason why I kind of like posited that what is belief is because we think we know what we're talking about. And when I start questioning this, it's like, do you believe in God? It's like, what do you mean by believe?
Yeah.
That's like the Zen answer. Like, do you believe in God? What do you mean by believe? It's like, who am I? It's like,
yeah.
Let's break this down and get down to the nitty gritty.
Exactly. Okay. I know a lot of people get annoyed with me for this because I always dig deeper. I'm like, people say something that is a little bit general.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, what do you actually mean? Can you be more specific when you say these words?
Yeah.
What do you mean? How do you define these words?
Because you're curious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I need to know that to understand where this conversation is going.
Yeah.
Because if you just throw out these words as if like it doesn't, like this could be interpreted 20 different ways. I need to know which interpretation you're using when you're describing this thing.
Yeah. Because
then I can follow the rest of the conversation.
I love it. Yeah, but it's incredibly important because I think very often conflicts happen as well because people think they're talking the same language, but they're actually using what they say, for example, about belief is slightly off from what the other one is. Yeah. And if it's slightly off, you're just doing this.
Exactly. Like, so you need to, if you want to have an honest and deep discussion, you need to know exactly what the other person means when he says something.
Yeah. Definitely. I think I know what you mean about this coffee. Right?
Yeah.
I believe I know what you mean about this coffee now.
So that is based on your perceptions of what you've tasted before and what you felt before and your understanding of flavor and all of these things. And based on all of that, you believe this is the case with this coffee.
The farm's name is Årstveit, and in the local dialects, or the local people know it as Kyrkjeflatitten, or church flats. And there's a story that the original first stave church was built here. When they cast the sticks, that was the way of divination. It's like Christian, non-Christian. They put the sticks, and the way they formed would tell you if the church was to be built here. So they cast the sticks, and then they came to look at them the next morning, and they'd gone. And they were found in the centre where the actual stave church was originally built. But Ord, the word actually, Ord means an opening in the forest, and Tveit means an opening in the forest, which is also, so it's like an opening in the forest, an opening in the forest. But Ord also means the old place of offering that they would have in the original pre-Christian way of, mythology, way of life, if you like. So there's probably an offering place here at one time.
On your property?
On this part here, because very often when they were going to build a church, they would build it on the old pagan places, right? So there's a good chance there was probably an old pagan offering place here.
And so the first stave church ever built was on this land?
They considered building it here, but it was actually built down there. Either that, or they did build a church here, a stave church, which didn't last very long, and then they moved it to Kyrkjebøen, which is in the centre.
When was that?
The stave church, I think, is registered in Hemsedal about 1200 or something. So, it's just like late Viking times, really. Yeah.
That's very
pretty
interesting.
Cool. So I know that there's been people here doing stuff with this area, at least from 1200. These houses, that house is originally built in 1850. It was restored in 1940. You see the Stabud, that was also part of that house. They were built together as they were. That's the storage house for clothes and food. And when they were built together, but when they built the new house, they moved that end across there. They're from that house is from 1900, and that's the woodshed, which is nearly falling down. That's the oldest house we still have here. It's from 1850, 170 years old or something.
The woodshed is 170 years old?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's actually made, the timbers inside are from an earlier house, which is kind of interesting. Okay, if that's 1850, and the earlier house lasted 100 years. So you're getting a house that's like some of the timbers from 1750, 1700s and stuff. But that's what they did when they renewed buildings in Hemsedal or in Norway. They would take the good timbers out of the old houses and renew them in the newer houses. Because then they've been seasoned and strengthened. They were good timbers. You don't throw them away.
That's interesting. This is paradise. Walking around this with this view.
Yes.
And that waterfall.
Yeah.
I can stare at that waterfall all day.
I do.
Yeah, I bet you do.
Here are the sheep.
Cool. Sheep are cool animals.
Indigenous Norwegian short-tailed sheep. Right, so we just approached, they don't know you, so they're going to be surprised when you suddenly appear. They'll suddenly kind of like notice you. They're noticing you now. So we don't want them to run away too quickly.
Tikk satten da. Tikk, 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 tikk. Å, så fine da. Å, så fine da. Ja. Hi. That's cool. Tikk, 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 tikk. Morna.
Hi.
Går det bra med Nikon? Går det bra med Nikon? They've not got much wool on them now. Most, generally speaking, the ewes have horns as well as the rams.
Yeah.
And typical for the indigenous sheep is they have coarse outer hair which sheds off the rain and the snow, and very, very fine under wool, which is the insulation. Hi.
Ah, so cute.
That's good. If you keep one hand in your pocket, they'll watch your hands because that's the dangerous thing.
This is so cool. Hi.
Here come in now. Thought I could show you the pens that we have the new mothers.
Not dangerous. I'm not gonna harm you. Hi.
These lambs are really just about 24 hours old.
24 hours old.
Yeah.
Hi.
Tiksa da. Oh, så fine tiksa. Kirsten is now, we're obliged to put plastic markings in the ears of every sheep. So we do that when they're lambs.
Yeah.
And then just before you let them out, we're also obliged to be able to track where the sheep are. So it's either a bell or something electronic. But the electronic stuff for each sheep is extremely expensive. So the traditional way is to use a bell around the neck. So they'll go with a bell all summer.
It's gotta be really annoying. Like,
I would think so. But they seem to get used to it, and it actually becomes a kind of a status symbol. So if a sheep loses its bell, it kind of loses its status in the flock. After about a few weeks, when everyone's used to it. It's kind of weird.
Huh.
But I suppose it's a bit like youngsters today. If they don't have a headset, it's like they're weird. You can see it's getting quite green here. The grass is starting to grow, so they get a taste for the new shoots, and then the silage becomes a bit boring, and so they really, really want to come out. They know there's grass around here now, and that's where they want to be. So now's the time to have strong fences, because they'll be pushing in. They're trying to get under the fence and stuff.
Hey.
So we have I don't know what's the filming like. You see there's a house up on the mountainside there.
Oh yeah.
You see the barn here, and then just across a bit there's another house up in there. There's two fields, very steep fields there, and that's where we have after they've been here and eaten the grass there, they go up there for 2 weeks. And then end of June usually, or the middle of June approximately, we drive them up to the mountain and release them on the mountain. They're on holiday then. So they roam freely with no gates or fences until September. But then we have to go out once or twice a week and just check where they are and everything's okay with them.
But how do you find them again when it's time to bring them back?
Well, later in the autumn, the grass starts to wither, and when they've eaten all the mushrooms. It has to be after they've eaten the mushrooms, because when the grass starts to wither, or there is less of it, and the mushrooms start to come because it's more raining, it's colder, and you get more mushrooms, and they kind of disappear when the mushrooms arrive. You don't find the sheep anyway, and if you do find the sheep, they kind of like when they say it, it's like you've been on the mushrooms. You can see it.
So they eat like funny mushrooms.
It wouldn't surprise me. I don't know. I'm not a sheep, and it's difficult to communicate. But when they're kind of like looking at you like this, it's like I never did that before.
That's really
So when
cool.
when that season's going over, they start looking around for, want something to eat. So then you go out with your concentrate bucket and do this, and they've got a taste for that now. If you go out and rattle a bucket with concentrates, I'm not going to do it. They go absolutely wild. They're real junkies. The whole flock goes like this, and so we go out with a bucket of concentrates in the autumn. In the area, quite a few square kilometres, and usually spend maybe 4 days getting them in. They come in small flocks, come into the enclosure pasture up at the mountain farm, and then when we've got them all in, we get the cattle truck to come up and drive them down here.
So what do you grow on this field then?
We're renewing the grass.
So you're growing like this?
Yeah.
Just,
It's in the old days they would have crop rotation. If you had grass first, then you would plough up the grass and you'd have barley, and then you'd have potatoes, and then you'd have grass again. And they three complement each other and keep the nutrients in the soil. In addition, you'd have the muck from the cowshed as well and stuff. They don't make the old type of barley anymore. It's nearly impossible to get hold of. And with modern barley, it doesn't become ripe here. And it wasn't always that the old types of barley became ripe either, because here you're at 670 metres above sea level. That's quite a harsh climate. So it was a risk that everyone took, that they would try to have barley, because it was very important to have Christmas beer.
That's
You'd
true.
think it was bread or something, but no. They've got milk, they've got sour milk, they've got cream, they've got cheese, and they've got meat. And what's left over from making the beer, you can make into flatbread, so that everything's okay.
I get that.
And when you get potatoes, I mean, like, who needs bread, you know?
This is so cool. These lambs are so cute.
Yeah.
It's very sad to think about them being slaughtered in a year, or less than that.
That's right. When you see them in a year's time, they're so much bigger. And it's kind of hard for the mothers as well, with these two whopping great big things that try and come in underneath and lift up the whole of her back end. It's like trying to suckle.
Do you artificially inseminate?
No,
Or
we did that when we first had them, because there was a lot of interbreeding with this type of sheep, and it was very restrictive because of scrapie sickness. So we took the initiative and bred in. I think we'd bred in about 15 different lines of sheep. So we preserved a variety, genetic variety in our flock. And a lot of people came and bought rams from our flock as well. But now we don't need to do that, so there are enough different types of genetic, enough genetic variety amongst the rams that you have in Hallingdal, in this area, that we can have a cooperation. So we always use rams now, which is much, much easier for us. And the sheep like it, and the rams like it. It's like win-win for everybody. You can see the horns on that one. That's a big ram. It's going to be we might keep that one for insemination, or for, what do you call it? Reproduction. So this is the barn I built myself from scratch. Got a neighbour to excavate all this. This is the concrete which we mixed ourselves and laid ourselves. And the timbers we harvested with a motor saw and pulled out with a horse. And then put it all together.
Hey.
Some people that come here, they can't walk around like you're doing now. The sheep, if you're a sheep person, then the sheep will be like this. But some have a lot of guests, quite a lot of guests that come and they manage to get to the gate perhaps.
Hey.
But the sheep just don't feel comfortable with him and they'll run right to the other end in a flock and like this.
Huh.
And the poor visitor will be like, what did I do? You know, it's like, the sheep, no, it's not a sheep person, that one.
Huh.
So you're privileged. They've accepted you.
That's
well
really nice. Yeah, I don't know, but animals have always tend to sort of feel comfortable with me. I don't really know why. I'm not really.
Right?
I'm not very used to animals, other than like I grew up with dogs and cats and rabbits and stuff.
Yeah.
But like in general, like animals and most dogs and everything, they tend to trust me somehow.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but it's nice. I love animals, so it's
That might help.
yeah. I guess it's like I'm quite calm. I don't feel stressed around them. I try to be quiet and calm. I guess that they feel that. I don't know. I guess they sense nervousness.
Oh
they
yeah.
get nervous themselves.
Oh yeah, definitely. Sometimes I come down here and it's like I've got things to do, and I feel quite normal in a way. But I'll start organising food for them, and they're just. And I was like, "Am I stressed? Yeah."
They sense it before you.
I'm stressed.
That's they're perceptive animals.
Yeah. You have to go and see the basement now.
The basement.
The basement. That was the place, because the basement actually was the muck cellar. Where the muck from the cows would be gathered.
All right.
And then we would have the muck tank back in there and open that door, the port, and the muck would run out into the muck tank. Then you close it again and spread it on the grass.
It's a sauna. Wow. Huh. Well, that's really nice.
I like it. It works anyway.
How long does it take to heat up?
Far too long.
Oh. Huh. This is your dojo. You have a private dojo.
Yes.
That's
Jeg har drømt om dette i mange 10 år. Og når jeg måtte ta et valg om hvor vi skulle gjøre med garden, så ok, vi prøver.
so the old shit basement is a dojo.
Yeah,
That's fascinating.
shit cellar.
Shit cellar is a dojo. What is underneath the floor here? It's so soft.
Dette er en veldig, it's a very expensive, very valuable type of dojo floor, which I invented myself. They closed the local territorial army center in Turpo when I was building this. So there are lots of military surplus stuff. So there's 2 layers of military sleeping mats underneath here, and then you've got this lino on top. So they cope with pressure, and they're insulating as well, the floor. And at the same time, they save my back. So we've had all kinds of different activities here. But there's training here. Let me see now. Monday, Tai Chi. Tuesday is sword, Kenjutsu. Wednesday is meditation and Qigong. And Thursday is karate. Evening. And then we have weekend courses and retreats and stuff like that.
Do you
Fairly
know?
regularly.
Do you host everything, or do you have like other?
No, not everything. Sometimes I have a Japanese sword teacher who lives in Kristiansand, and she for 10 years she came twice a year, but then we had COVID and things got complicated. But she said she hopes to come this autumn. That's
continue the tradition of.
How many students do you have here?
Not very many. This is Hemsedal. I mean, in Hemsedal there's 2,000 inhabitants. But I've got 11 students in the karate and 3 or 4 doing kenjutsu at the moment. And a lot of people who said, "Oh, I'm so interested, I'll start in the autumn." We'll see. I'm trying to get interest in the Tai Chi. It's kind of weird that Tai Chi is really popular everywhere, but not here. You know that yin-yang symbol?
Yeah.
It's so important, so important. Can I just show you? I'll do it very quickly. You don't have to, not a big lecture. Oh, someone put a smiley face on that. That's cool. When you draw a yin-yang symbol, I'll probably cock it all up now. Let's have a look. Circle, right? So this is a yin-yang symbol. That one's there. Right, opposing forces of the universe, yeah? Or complementary forces of the universe, the light and the dark, and the male and the female, and the up and the down, and the north and the south. Yeah. Well, why didn't they do it this way then? They could have just done that. And it says, right, these are the complementary forces of the universe. They could have done that, but they didn't. They did it this way. And you see this, you say this is the dark, coming into the light and becoming the light. And within the light you have the dark, and within the dark you have the light. They have to be in balance. Right, and this also indicates movement. They're always moving, evolving, changing. And then you start thinking about yourself, you know, and like the dark places in yourself and the light places, the conscious places, the heavy, what's heavy and solid, what's flowing and light. And then you get the same in the martial art. You say, well, martial art, if you say self-defense, you can think of your defense mechanism against illness. So all the movements in Tai Chi is self-defense because it's good for your health. It has to be good. If it's not good for your health, then don't do it. You know, what's the point of learning to defend yourself and at the same time you're destroying yourself or harming yourself? Yeah, it's deep.
Interesting. Cool. So, you're a complex guy. You have a lot of things going on.
Okay, yeah.
You're a farmer, a biker, Tai Chi teacher, a nature guide. Like, what do you not do?
But they all hang together.
Yeah, I guess.
It's the basic idea of all this is that what is a good way, a life path to rediscover nature in yourself. Rediscovering nature. So nature here, we kind of objectify it, but we have nature in ourselves. And if you become truly natural, you know, I think that's our birthright, it's our inheritance, is everybody is natural. And it's a good place to be.
Yeah, well, everything on Earth is kind of natural. It is part of the natural world. So yeah, you can say that. At the same time, it is harmful to cut us off from true natural processes. It's like taking the baby away from the mother. You know, if you think of nature or the Mother Earth, and we try and build concrete and steel and make all these different kinds of things that put us in little boxes and separate ourselves from that natural process. And I kind of think that's an important part of it as well, is the processes. We not just separate, it's just like we're separate from the processes of nature. Yeah.
You know, so, and it's a good place to be when you're back in the flow. I think the flow is very important.
Yeah, you can get very philosophical with all these things.
Yeah, for me it's a life.
You can dig very deep.
Yeah, but for me it's a lifestyle and I've lived it.
Yeah.
Right. And so the courses I do, I'm sharing this with participants, and it's very important that they share. And you say because we're sharing with each other, because there's always new perspectives to come in. People come in and say, "What about this?" You know, I was like, "Oh, it's a good idea, right?" And that means I've progressed.
Yeah.
We've all progressed.
That's what happens if you are actually interested in learning and actually try to listen.
Yeah.
to the people you're talking to,
Yeah.
instead of just talking over them. And
Sure.
yeah, cool. Well, thank you for this tour. This has been a really, really fascinating 2 days or day and a half. Or
I think so too. I've enjoyed your company.
yeah,
It's been great conversations. Really
was
enjoyable.
way more than I expected. I expected to come here, maybe have a cup of coffee, and then move on.
Right.
And then it turned into all of this. This has been amazing.
Oh,
I thank you. Like, really, thank you. This has been
you're welcome.
great. This is
my pleasure.
what I'm seeking out. This is what I want on my journeys.
Yeah.
Meeting people like you and getting these experiences. This has been amazing. Really.
Right. Well, it's so good that you share them on the videos as well. It's really, really important.
Well, the videos are kind of my diary as well.
Yeah.
And I kind of share what I learn, and I try to talk about what I learn and how I'm changing my mind. If I get new ideas, I try to say it out loud.
Sure.
It very often comes out a bit aggressive.
Provocative.
Yeah. But I am learning, and I'm taking everything in, and it takes, like, change takes time, and understanding takes time.
Well, I really appreciate these discussions we've been having, because it's very obvious you have an open mind. And I really enjoy the fact that you're not just going to accept anything I say, but question it, which also helps me to clarify what I mean or change my mind. And so I think that process in the last couple of days, I really value that.
Yeah,
so thank you very much. Yeah.
It's been great. Cool. I think it's getting late now.
Yeah. We won't have the last beer.
Yeah, let's go have a last beer.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool. Well, see you guys tomorrow. Peace.